Hello everyone and welcome to BrickCats. Today I am reviewing the second version of 2Bricks Official's T-65 X-Wing. As always, consider leaving a like, leaving a comment, or supporting what I do in any other way you see fit. I greatly appreciate it. I am just under 1,000 YouTube subscribers at the time I am recording this in late March 2023, a number that's still incredible to me, so thank you very much to everyone that has supported me already. The X-Wing needs no introduction, and while sadly I don't have the original version of 2Bricks' X-Wing to compare, due to an unfortunate run-in with a then 4.5-year-old, this version doesn't need a comparison to make it very clear that it gets pretty much everything right. Without any substitutions for the ship and stand, Bricklink's algorithm gave me 4 stores and $117 without shipping and tax, or about $145 with shipping and tax. In my reviews, I offer my opinions on aesthetics and model features, parts issues you might want to look out for, the build experience, the model's integrity, and I close out with my overall impression and pricing information in the conclusion. If you're watching this review, I assume that you bought the instructions or are interested in buying them. I also assume a basic level of familiarity with Bricklink's ordering system and LEGO nomenclature. I only use genuine LEGO bricks, and I always purchase the instructions. I create these reviews for my own personal enjoyment and in the hopes that my advice will make your experience more enjoyable and or less expensive. Two Bricks' X-Wing measures 14.25 inches long, 12 inches wide, and tops out at just under 6 inches on the display stand with the S-foils in attack position. Off the display stand on its landing gear, the X-Wing tops out at about 3.75 inches. Like the first version, the updated model retains the bright color palette that makes this a really fun model to look at. There's a nice balance between smooth and studs as well. The nose cone is a pretty interesting construction, and its shape gives the impression of some relief from the surface of the fuselage, especially as you can see here. These corner cut tiles are actually connected on the fuselage side here, and they close off a gap, and these angles come together very nicely. The clip is a little distracting at the top here, but given the way this all connects, it's pretty unavoidable, and it's definitely worth it in my opinion to both stabilize the model and make the coloration of this section of the fuselage possible. The sides of the fuselage have some subtle asymmetries, which is definitely a good thing. You can see the sand green here, but not on the other side. And I really liked how these light bluish-gray sections matched up on both the angled side of the fuselage here with this new 2x6 wedge and these 1x3 inverted tiles there. And this helps the sub-assemblies blend together a lot better than they would otherwise. The cockpit is likely the most noticeable difference between this and most other X-Wing mocks in that it does not use the official windscreen piece in favor of representing the outline of the canopy with hoses. I personally am a big fan of this method because it's more accurate and generally less expensive these days, but for people that do want the canopy look, there are alternate instructions for fitting the windscreen piece into the model with only a few minor modifications. The canopy raises up, and inside there are various representations of controls and the targeting computer on the side here. A little bit difficult to see because it's in black. I did take out the minifigure I have in there, but a pilot fits in there just about perfectly. And the astromech sits in behind, and it's very easy to get in and out with these doors on either side that when the astromech is in, they match up very nicely with the sides of the ship. The greebling at the top of the main fuselage is very simple but well done, and either side the engines are shaped with the slope pieces instead of cylinder pieces. The old version had some unsightly gaps behind the intakes, and it's nice to see these filled in very solid. Even if the colors are a little bit off, it doesn't really matter. They're mostly hidden in shadow. And I really like the inclusion of the dark pink engine glow on the back of the engines. Each of the wings and engines are built slightly differently, and the update retains a nice nod to functionality and expense by only including interior wing details on the bottom wings. You can see that these are slightly different colors here, but not replicated on the top wing, and that's simply because you're more likely to see the inside of the bottom wing when you've got this on display. And similarly, the top of the upper wings are very detailed, whereas the bottom of the bottom wings are less so. And this is simply just because, again, you're unlikely to see the bottom wings very often. One thing I think could look a little better is the shape of the detailing on the wings right here, especially for this red stripe. And this is quite a difficult shape to achieve within the LEGO system, and this is certainly a good enough approximation, and I believe this is the same as the original version. I was thinking maybe you could do something with the 1x1 round corner tiles in dark red to give it a little more definition. I still think maybe we need to move these, the stripes over one stud, just to make it a little more angled, I guess. And this is pretty much the only thing I think could be better on this model. The cannons are very solid and just about the right length, and until LEGO makes a better piece for the flash suppressors, no LEGO X-Wing is going to look as good as it could if such a piece existed, but this is a very interesting way to do it, and maintain the overall appearance of the cannon, while not compromising on durability. Turning the model over, you get a good look at the lower wings again, as well as the anti-studs on the bottom of the fuselage. And one thing I noticed, that I didn't pick up while building, is that there's really good transitions between 5-wide construction, like right here, and 3-wide construction here, and then 4-wide at the back. So it's interesting to see how the different widths kind of define the shape of the hull, without using too many complicated slopes and unstable connections there. There is a functional storage compartment with slightly more room than the original. And there are functional landing skids. The skids on the engines don't fold up entirely into the engine, as you can see, but that doesn't really matter in my opinion. And then the front skid folds out like so. So this X-Wing sits very nicely on the skids, and it's also pretty stable. I did find a missing 1x2 dark red tile here on the underside port wing, and I did confirm with 2Bricks that this is an omission. My favorite part of this X-Wing, if you remember or watched the original version, and I'm really glad that this has been retained, is the functionality of the S-foil mechanism. This is integrated so well into the model and it functions just about perfectly. You push up on this little section right here to open the S-foils, and then closing them is as simple as pressing down on that section here. It's really easy to operate, and it has just the right amount of resistance to feel pretty satisfying. There's a nice click there. And it's also very stable in the closed position. There's not too much flapping, although there is a little, but that's kind of unavoidable. So this is by far the best S-foil mechanism in an X-Wing MOC that I'm aware of, in terms of ease of use, stability, and it's just really cool. The stand has also not changed, and this holds the fighter at a nice angle. The brick-built Alliance symbol on the front looks okay. It's not particularly to my taste, but it is well done. My only suggestion here would be to have a plain version in case maybe 2Bricks wanted to use the design for other models of his. And the X-Wing fits on the stand fairly easily, like so. And you can also operate the S-foils on the stand. I have a lot of suggestions in my review of the original version of this model, and in my opinion, 2Bricks has done an incredible job addressing pretty much all of them. This model looks so good, and in my opinion, it's definitely worth upgrading to version 2 from version 1 on the merits of the visual changes alone. This model requires 281 elements, and the parts list contains 1,009 pieces, while the stand requires 55 elements and 123 pieces. Most of the pieces in this model have at least one edge showing, and this is a very economical model to begin with. I only found a couple that are good candidates for color substitutions. The lone 2x8 plate in white, part 3034, one of the 9 1x8 plates in white, part 3460, and one of the 9 2x3 plates in light bluish gray, part 3021 that go on in step 35 are all hidden and can be any color, and these are deep in the fuselage section, right about there. Similarly, the lone 2x3 brick in white, part 3002, that goes on in step 36, is also hidden and can be any color, and this is in roughly the same area. In addition to those limited color swaps, there are a few pieces that were on the expensive side that you could consider substituting. The first is the plate round 1x2 half with one stud jumper in light bluish gray, part 1745. This is a newer element that debuted in 2022, so Bricklink tends to be a little bit expensive. And I saw these anywhere from 65 cents to $1.50 in my algorithm results, and this is right on the top here. The stud doesn't have a functional purpose, so you could substitute the tile round 1x2 half in light bluish gray, part 1748. This is also a newer element, and thus also tends to be more on the expensive side. So you can make this more economical with two of the tile round 1x1/4, part 25269 in light bluish gray. Or if you want the stud, the logical substitution is the plain jumper plate, part 3794B in light bluish gray. The slope curved 1x4 by 1 1/3 in white, part 6191, was surprisingly uncommon and rather expensive. And I had one of these for some reason, not two. I have no idea where it came from. And you can see it, I can just take this off here. This piece that goes on the bottom engines. Since this was so expensive, I didn't want to buy another one, so I swapped the one that I was missing for two slope curved 1x2x1 in white, and an additional 1x4 plate in white, part 3710. Of course, if you were changing out both of these, you would double the quantity. I will just take both of these off for a quick comparison here. So here is the substitution, and here is the original. It's exactly the same shape. This just tends to be like 15 cents total, and this was like 75. And this was also surprisingly uncommon. I'm not really sure why. Anyway, these are also on the bottom engines, so you don't really see them very much, and in my opinion, you're not going to notice the difference unless you get up real close. And if they're both the same, then no one's going to notice anyway. The flat silver 29L hose, part 75C29, is listed in the parts list, but you're only using 16 studs worth of hose. It's definitely nice to have the extra in case you mess up, and this is what I was left with. But this hose typically runs about $2. I think it's $1.71 on Pick-a-Brick. But if you're confident in your measuring and cutting abilities, the 16L hose in light bluish gray will give you exactly the right amount of hose to make the cockpit. You need two 6L sections for these longer parts here, and one 4L section here. I do think flat silver is the best color though, as it offers the most contrast between the gray sections around the other parts of the cockpit. For the stand, there weren't any significant substitutions, but the majority of these pieces are quite common for both the model and the stand, and are available from Pick-a-Brick. There aren't any pieces in large quantities that really stick out as being advantageous to buy directly from LEGO, especially as this model doesn't have large quantities in general or uncommon pieces. Two Bricks' X-Wing instructions have 586 steps, and each part or subassembly you add in a given step is outlined in bright red against a white background. The build goes at a nice pace, and each step you add has no more than a couple pieces at a time. If you have an earlier release of the version 2 X-Wing instructions, you may have some of the following errors. I did message 2Bricks about these, and he intends to fix these issues in an upcoming version if he hasn't already. In step 38, the 1x3 plate shouldn't be there, otherwise the S-foil assembly doesn't fit on in step 256. Step 66 calls for two 1x2 tiles, but these are not necessary because of the 2x2 modified tiles you put on in step 63. There's a minor sequencing error in step 362. The 1x8 Technic brick in this step needs to be added in before the 1x2 curved slope, and the 1x2 curved slope goes on in step 359, but you have to remove this to get the Technic brick connected. Then finally, very minor in the stand instructions, the 3L Technic pin shown in step 493 is in the incorrect orientation. The end with the stop should be inserted into the Technic hole. This is a straightforward build without any tricky or fussy connections, and is suitable for nearly all levels of builders. And the only thing that makes me say nearly all levels of builders is that if someone is a little bit on the younger side, they're probably going to need help cutting the hose. 2Bricks designed some of the sturdiest custom models available, and the updated version retains the stability of the original model. It's very comfortable to hold, and you can operate the S-foils with one hand while swishing it. And this model will stand up to pretty much any reasonable level of play. I showed you the landing gear earlier, and I just wanted to point out that these swing open in opposite directions. So the rear landing skids sweep down this way, while the front one sweeps out the opposite way. And this contributes to the stability. It means that they're not going to flop in on each other. You can push this around and it's not going to... the landing skids aren't going to collapse. There is a little bit of looseness in the wings, and you can see them jiggle a little bit. And also you can kind of see a small gap in the wings occasionally, depending on how well the mechanism feels like holding. But this is pretty normal. I'm not really sure how you would fix, quote unquote, fix that. Well, I mean, if you consider it a problem without using rubber bands, and rubber bands are really ugly. So this is perfectly fine to me. The bottom wings are only connected with 2 Technic pins. So if you can kind of see in here, you've got 2 lift arms, and there's 4 Technic pins connecting the top wing, but there's only 1 lift arm and 2 Technic pins connecting the bottom wing. So the bottom wing is noticeably looser than the top on this side, and conversely, this top starboard wing is noticeably looser than this bottom starboard wing. So nothing's going to fall off here, it's just those 2 pins act as kind of a pivot, and you can kind of see it jiggling front to back there, while it's on the other side that doesn't really happen. The cannons, typically a very fragile part, are very solid actually, and you can tap these, nothing's going to happen. When I was driving this to my office, I did notice that these engines can come off a little bit, but that's just because this is kind of just like a big lever, so that's going to be obviously a little more prone to coming off like that. But like I said, during casual play, even if you bump this with your hands while you're holding it, nothing's going to happen. There are free instructions and a parts list available for the stand, and I definitely recommend the stand if you decide to build this model. If you don't care about the Alliance symbol, you can leave out the red parts, but the stand is sturdy enough to keep the model from falling over and puts it at a nice display angle. The only 2 issues with the stand, you just saw one of them. These wedges tend to come off. You could leave these wedges out. These are the 6x4 wedges in black, and you just would have to put up with seeing some of the Technic innards, or Technic connectors there. The thing about the stand is that I actually typically grab it by this section, so I do find these wedges popping off a little bit annoying, but it's not a big deal. And the other issue with the stand I have is that you can see there are 6 solid studs that connect to the bottom of the X-Wing, and this actually offers a little bit too much friction sometimes. Like, I've had these 1x4 modified plates come off and stick to the bottom. Again, this happened while I was filming this video, so maybe if I cut it out, you won't see it. But, you know, taking it off the stand is not difficult by any means. It's just sometimes you get a few extra pieces with it, and sometimes, like, if you move it from side to side too much, these little slope pieces can come off. 2Bricks Official's version 2 X-Wing is a highly worthy upgrade to an already great model. The overall shape of the fighter is extremely accurate, buying the parts won't cost you an arm and a leg, it has the best S-foil mechanism in any custom model you can buy, and it's also very sturdy. Without any substitutions for the ship and stand, again, Bricklink's algorithm gave me 4 stores and $117 without shipping and tax, or about $145 with shipping and tax. With the color and part substitutions, I got 3 stores and $113 without shipping and tax, or about $134 with shipping and tax. And utilizing Pick-a-Brick in mid-March 2023, the vast majority of these elements were available from LEGO. and my pick-a-brick total was $124, which met the thresholds for eliminating the handling fee for both bestseller and standard pieces, and it qualified for free shipping. Bricklinking the remaining 5 elements, I was able to find a store that had all of them for $3 without shipping and tax, or about $9 total, and the grand total was therefore $133. This wasn't a huge amount of savings, and I think there are some opportunities for optimization between Pick-a-Brick and Bricklink. Your mileage may vary, but whatever you do, if you go the Pick-a-Brick route, make sure you are meeting the thresholds for eliminating the handling fees, which is $14 for both standard and bestseller items, and ideally you meet the $35 threshold for free shipping as well. I have a feeling that if I play around with this a little bit more, I could probably get this under... I could probably get the grand total under $100. Instructions for 2Bricks' X-Wing are free for those who bought version 1, which is an awesome thing to do. If you're buying the version 2 instructions, they cost a very reasonable $8, and I do recommend supporting designers such as 2Bricks with a purchase. It's a minimal cost compared to the cost of the parts, and $8 for a model as good as this is extremely reasonable. There will be a link to the Rebrickable page as well as to the designer's YouTube video in the description. Thanks as always for watching my review of 2Bricks' T-65 X-Wing version 2. If you've built this model, have something to share that I left out, or have a question about something I didn't cover, please leave them below in the comments. Remember to leave the video a like, subscribe to the channel, or follow me on Instagram if you haven't already, and I hope to see you back next time.